2, 3.
Hey guys, this is Beth from Nursery, and I'm here with our new video series called Nursery Know-How. We're going to be answering questions that we commonly get at the nursery, and then we'll also be just answering questions that you have, so feel free to comment below with any questions that you want us to answer. Starting with question number 1 is when and how to trim our hydrangeas. There are 2 types of hydrangeas that I'm going to be talking about, and both are a little bit different. We have sun hydrangeas and we also have shade hydrangeas. Our sun hydrangeas typically bloom out white, and then sometimes they fade to a pink color. Your popular varieties are like Little Lime, Limelight, Firelight. Whenever you go to trim them, it's best to trim them in the spring, typically after they have leaves. These bloom on new wood, so you can go ahead and trim them as far back as you want to. We do recommend at least leaving a little bit of growth on there so you do have a form, but we do trim kind of in a round ball shape just to keep that hydrangea bush nice and tight. If your hydrangea needs a more significant trim, you're going to wait until May to do that. So for your shade hydrangeas, which are your larger leaf hydrangeas, your blues, your pinks, your purples, mop head hydrangeas is a common name, you're going to wait until after they bloom to trim them. So that's going to be typically mid to late summer before you give them a prune. Usually we just kind of go in and shape it up a little bit, give it a small trim. Sometimes on your older hydrangeas, you might go in and trim out just some old wood in there, but be very selective about what you trim out. How to trim is the big question. We use Corona hand tools. These are great pruners. We do sell them in store, but I like to use these for smaller jobs. You're gonna trim at a 45-degree angle. So not straight across, obviously not jarred or up and down, but you want a nice clean cut at a 45-degree angle. It is very important that we make sure our tools are clean. The easiest way to clean them is just a simple bleach water mixture, or you can just use a Lysol wipe and clean it off. That ensures that all the bacteria, anything weird that may come from something else or just from your tools sitting somewhere is cleaned off of that, and you're not passing any disease or pest onto that shrub. If you're enjoying this content, go ahead and hit the like video button. This will help boost our video and YouTube's algorithm. Our next question is going to be, when do I transplant my hydrangeas? We always want to wait for cooler weather. A general rule of thumb is Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day. Your hydrangeas will go dormant, meaning that they'll lose their leaves and they're just going to conserve their energy in the winter. And that is the best time to transplant them. Now, as you go to transplant them, you can just use a shovel. We do like to rake back the mulch, obviously around it, any dead leaves, anything like that. Whenever you go to start digging, the drip line is considered around the edge of the plant. So think if you were just watering from the top of the plant, the drip line is going to be right around the edge of the leaves. You want to go just a little bit further out from that, so like 4 to 6 inches away from that drip line, and just start digging. As you dig down, you're also going to dig in so that you have a really nice root ball. Personally, if you have a lot of clay, you can just shake some of it off the roots. If it is nice and dark brown, then you can leave most of those roots intact, but you just want to break up the soil a little bit, just like you would when you're planting a new shrub. We recommend putting in, if you have super red clay soil, you just want to put in some permatil in the soil. It's nice slate that'll give you some good drainage and also help conserve some water in the summertime. But you do want to use biotone in the hole right underneath the roots. You want to mix in some good Daddy Pete's raised bed mix. Go ahead and backfill that hole, put the hydrangea in. You're going to treat it just like a new planting. Once you plant it, always plant it high, 2 to 3 inches above the ground. And then you're going to backpack the soil and just kind of press down on it, tamp it down, make sure it's good and sturdy. In the spring, you're going to fertilize with Holly-Tone. That's going to be your best stuff, so it can start leaking into the soil and your roots will get a good boost. Our third question is also about hydrangeas, and it's, how do I get my hydrangeas to bloom? This is a very common question, and it is a very common issue with your shade hydrangeas. Typically they bloom on old wood, meaning that if you trim them late fall to winter, you're going to cut off any of the blooms starting to form, which is why we recommend trimming in late summer right after they bloom and only trimming a little bit. They also get affected by any late frosts that we have. So here in Morganton, we get a lot of frosts in April after they've already budded up and they're pushing out new leaves. So So that does sometimes burn the blooms off, meaning that in the summer you'll get this super luscious bush. It looks so pretty, so full of leaves, but there is no color on it. The best way to combat that is anytime you see leaf buds starting to form, or if you think there are blooms starting to form, just throw a sheet over it in the spring. I always start in about March and I just kind of go out and cover it, and in the morning on my way to work I'll just pull that sheet right off of it. And that's the best way to keep the frost from getting those buds. Again, you do want to fertilize your hydrangeas. A lot of times the older varieties, they've sucked all the nutrients out of the soil, and so it's really hard for them to make blooms with just what they have. So we want to use Holly-Tone in early spring, and you can sprinkle it on there. The amount does depend on how big your hydrangea is, so you can just kind of look at the back of the bag and judge how much you need. That it's a granular product, sprinkle it right on the soil around that drip line. In the fall, we want to use either soil acidifier for a more blue hydrangea or garden lime for a more pink hydrangea. The roots will soak it up, it'll produce the blooms based on what you used. Our last question for this week's series is gonna be when and how do I trim my azaleas? So we wanna trim in the spring right after they bloom. Depending on the weather, this is typically April to May for us. We just do a light trim, shape it up really nicely, but that's right after they bloom, so we don't risk cutting off any buds or blooms for this year. We're also going to use our hand pruners. This is for smaller jobs, more selective pruning. These Corona tools work really great, or even just pruning shears would work. The golden question is how much can I trim off of my azaleas? For your smaller ones, you can trim, just a light trim will be fine. Cut off more of the leggy sprouts, and you'll see it. Most of your bush is gonna be really nice and full, and then you'll have a few shoots out here and there, and that's what we consider a leggy plant. If you need to trim a third or more off, then wait until May when the weather's warmer, the ground temperature is warmer, and it's gonna be less stress on that plant. And that'll give it a chance to grow and fill out a little bit before the cooler weather hits and it gets cold outside. We really don't want to trim more than about a half of our shrub away, so if you have something that's 6 feet, don't trim it to the ground, only trim it to about waist high, and that'll just ensure that your plant isn't stressed out. After you trim your azalea, especially on more aggressive trimmings, you might have to do a second trimming in late summer. Again, it's just a shoot here or there that pushes off growth, and you can go back and trim that late summer into early fall, so you're looking at about August or September for that. Thanks for watching our video for this week. If you like the content in it, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. And if you have questions, ask below.